Fine. So I have just now revised the entire stellar physics that we have completed. Okay, and you can find almost every topic that has been discussed on this blackboard. So let me again start from the very basic. Let me do a sort of revision. So the first observation that we have is that the solar luminosity is roughly constant, and this observation, it is there with us for more than 1000 years or so. So as a result, you can say the solar luminosity, it hasn't changed much. Now as you know, luminosity is equal to 4 pi r square into sigma T to the power 4. T is again effective temperature. I am just telling you. Fine. So the fact means that this R into T, they are constant. Okay. Now you can also argue that, sir, this function R T square is also constant. But let me talk about, I am not going to talk about it now. Let me talk about it later on. So first thing that we can infer is that what will happen if the radius is constant? That is constant R. Now how can we have constant R? So inside the star we have got the gravitation, which is just forcing the particles together, right? So there is a force of gravity working inside, and what is inside? The particles, everything. Now as a result of gravity, what will happen is that they will go on colliding more and more with each other as they come closer to each other, and as a result of that, what will happen? Because of coming closer to each other, the temperature will keep on increasing. There will be more and more frequent collisions, right? So as a result, the kinetic energy will increase, and then there will be a pressure due to this kinetic energy, which we can make kinetic pressure, Kp, and this is gravitational force. And only if the two of them are equal, then can we have a constant radius, right? So this is what is happening. So constant radius when kinetic pressure becomes equal to gravitational force here, and that from that we arrived at the condition of this equation, hydrostatic equilibrium. That means dP dr, rate of change of pressure as a function of distance from the center, or dP dm, and that m is the mass enclosed within a certain distance from the center, right? So this hydrostatic equilibrium, it can have either dP dm form or dP del P del R form. Fine. Okay. Now what about this constant temperature? How can we have a constant temperature? Suppose I buy some samosa from a shop and put it on the table, and say after 10 minutes, what you will see is that it is much colder compared to previous case when it was hot, and after say 1 hour it is completely cold. So we will say, okay, come on, just heat it up again so that we can enjoy it. But instead, if such a thing happens that even after 1 hour you see the temperature of the samosa is still very hot, what will you infer? You will say someone is heating it up. Find out who is heating it up. Okay, but you can also see that no one is here. So this means that, of course, there is a source, but since it is not outside, the source must be inside. So the same thing is happening also. How can we have constant temperature, constant effective temperature of the sun? So this means that there is some source which is constantly heating it up from inside. Now the thing is that if you look at the sun, you see sunlight outside. Where is the sunlight coming from? From the sun, right? Solar surface, the photons are being emitted. So this means that the sun is constantly radiating energy. And how can it have a constant temperature? Only if the source is inside, which is maintaining this constant loss of energy. Okay, now we have to find out the source of this energy of the sun. So what can be the various sources? The first source of energy is the energy due to gravitational contraction, right? But you can also check for yourselves that gravitational contraction, just the energy released from it, and if you consider the current solar luminosity, you will not be able to explain the age of the sun. Next, let us consider chemical energy as the source. Let us consider the sun is entirely made up of water molecules, and if you consider dissociation, so this is a chemical release of energy. Even if you do that, you can check this for yourself. You will see that you will still not be able to explain the age of the sun. So let us come to a different procedure. The procedure is, let us apply our famous virial theorem to the sun, a gas particle which is gravitationally bound. Let us apply the virial theorem to it. And if we do that, then you see that upon the application of virial theorem, we will find, considering the mass of the sun, we will find that the virial temperature is of the order of 10 to the power 7 Kelvin. Now what does this tell us? This temperature is so high that nuclear reaction is possible. So of course it must be nuclear reactions which are basically heating up the sun. Okay, now talking about nuclear reaction, I have already discussed this in previous classes. You will see that the rate of energy generation due to nuclear reaction, some part has been left which I will cover in next week's class. It is proportional to the density of, if the nuclear reaction is happening through a two-body reaction, then of course the rate of energy generation per unit volume will be proportional to the two densities of the reacting nuclei, right? So rho A, rho B into some temperature function. There is a huge temperature dependence, and that is T to the power nu. What is this nu? I will again work out in next week's class. Okay, so this is how we can conclude that, and indeed, if we just consider 0.7% of energy, 10% of the energy which is being released by PP reaction, you will be able to explain the age of the sun. Okay, so nuclear reaction, and again we can have this energy generation due to nuclear reaction this form. Now this means that luminosity, which is basically equal to d, right, rate of change of the energy. So from there we get another equation of stellar structure, d dt equal to luminosity. Now this is when the sun is in hydrostatic equilibrium and also in thermal equilibrium. Now the next thing is that you remember, so as I was saying, we talked about virial theorem, virial temperature. Fine. Now you see that the core temperature is very high. Gravity, because of the effect of gravity, the temperature will be very high here. Okay, outside it is much lower. Now, so this means that the temperature inside is high, outside is low. So there is a temperature gradient. So this means that must be some transport. Now you see sunlight outside. So what are you seeing? Radiation, photons you are seeing. So this is basically the result of the temperature transport. And if we assume that the photon, now you can also calculate the photon mean free path as and compare it with the dimension of the sun, and you see that it is of the order of centimeter and very small compared to the dimension of the sun, and locally we can assume that there is a sort of equilibrium in a very small range where the things do not change, and then we can have a concept of local thermodynamic equilibrium, and then we can derive this dT/dr, which is the radiative transport equation. Now of course there are other modes of transport of energy inside the sun, say conduction and convection, but right now just concentrate on this. We will talk about it later on. Okay, now you see, so we have got this star, and what is the matter inside it? It is filled up with matter everywhere. There is no pocket of vacuum inside. Okay, So this means that we can apply this equation, density is equal to mass by volume, or we can calculate mass as which is inside a certain distance from the center, right? And that gives me the equation of continuity over here. So this is yet another equation of stellar structure. This is how we are moving on. So we move from here and then we are talking about the equation of continuity. Now you see there is something even more, which is that inside the sun we can have atoms, right? If the temperature is high, electrons can get ionized, we can have ions, and of course photons are there. So we have atoms, ions, electrons, photons and all that stuff. And previously, remember, I was talking about this kinetic pressure. So there will be pressure due to all these four types of particles. Remember also that nuclear reaction is going on. So along with these particles there will be neutrino as well, which is also formed in the nuclear reaction. But the mean free path of neutrino is much larger than the sun, or even order sometimes. So you can easily forget it. And basically instead of neutrino energy transport, you can think of like that neutrino loss due to neutrino. Okay, so there is basically energy loss when neutrinos are escaping the sun and not transport. Transport means here the photons here, they are slowly absorbed, reabsorbed and again emitted, then again reabsorbed, and it takes around more than say 30,000 years for photons, more than that, to escape the sun after being generated near the pole. Again this calculation I will show you next week. This also you can do assuming the random walk motion. This is a very interesting application. Okay, so I was talking about the radiative energy transport and we talked about the different types of particles inside, and so there will be pressure which will be resisting this gravitational force, right? And as a result we have to consider the different types of pressures due to these types of particles. So we have to consider the equation of state, which means the dependence of pressure on density, temperature and also composition. Another thing, this matter inside this also contributes to the energy generation, nuclear energy generation. There is another very important thing, which is that the ability of the matter to absorb radiation or opacity, and there are various sources for that: bound free absorptions and also electron scattering. And roughly you can have a general form in terms of this Kramer's opacity. This is a general relation which is rho by T to the power 7 by 2. Anyway, so this is the more or less gist. Yes, one thing. Yes, I was talking about the equation of continuity here. So I was saying that the matter inside there is no gap, and you can write the mass as a function of distance from the center, and that is density equal to mass by volume. From there you can have this term del M del R, and so this means that we can use either M or either R. And for all the other equations, say hydrostatic equilibrium, you see we can also use M or R. But it has been observed that during the process of stellar evolution, the changes in this R is much larger, several orders of magnitude compared to the changes in M. So it is better to use this del P del M or as a function of M. It is better to calculate. It will be faster for evaluation as well. So this is more or less the gist of what various types of things which have been covered. Right. And finally, as I was saying previously as well, regarding this part, so initially we can have just a interstellar matter which is collapsing and so on and so forth. So only the effect of gravity there. Then as a course of its evolution, later on we can have a scenario when the kinetic gas pressure becomes equal to the gravitational force, right? Then we have a normal main sequence star, and after that suppose the mass is even more, then after during the process of evolution, it will happen that the matter, the density inside will change, and suppose the mass is so big that it will not be able to retain the equilibrium, then the next phase of equilibrium will happen due to the degeneracy pressure of electrons outside and inside. So this is a normal main sequence star, and this is your white dwarf star. Okay, and suppose the mass is even more, then what will happen is that, remember, the densities keep on increasing, size is decreasing. So next stage will be degeneracy pressure due to neutrons. The protons will be getting converted to neutrons and all that. Okay, so I am just giving a very sketchy picture. Details we will work later on. So again, this will be the one, and when we have a hydrostatic equilibrium, then only you will have the neutron star. So only when you have got hydrostatic equilibrium, then only you have a white dwarf between the degenerate pressure and gravity. Okay, and what after that? After that we have got even something like quark matter star. This is also theoretical. So we have a quark matter star, where the quark degeneracy pressure will equate the gravitational pressure, and if the mass is so large that even this quark degeneracy pressure is unable to halt the gravitational collapse, then you will have nothing but just black hole. But there is lot going on in between. Say for example, just consider this case that there is a hydrogen fusion going on inside. So what will happen? The fusion will keep on increasing to outer space. What will happen inside? Inside we will have only helium, right? So only helium core, and hydrogen gas will keep on expanding outward, hydrogen burning. But after some time the pressure will be keep on increasing, gravitation, but after some time the temperature in the helium core, it might be very high, and there will be helium burning. So there will be shells going on. First hydrogen burning, then helium burning cell, and so on. So I am skipped all that part over here. This picture is broadly based on hydrostatic equilibrium. But in between we have got these various burning stages as well. Anyway, any questions?